Chile produces more copper than any nation on Earth, and when its mines slow down, stock markets on 3 continents start sweating. That's not hyperbole. It's arithmetic. Chile sits on roughly a quarter of the planet's known copper reserves. The Atacama Desert, one of Earth's driest places, holds the richest seam of the metal we've built modern civilization around. And here's where incentives matter. When copper prices spike, Chile's government budget swells. When they crater, entire ministries go quiet. Nobody in this story is stupid. Look at what they were paid to see. Exhibit 1, the 2008 financial collapse. Most people blame Wall Street. They're not wrong, but here's what actually happened to Chile. Copper hit $4 per pound in mid-2008. By December, it had cratered to $1.25. The Chilean peso tanked 30% in weeks. Their export revenue, the lifeblood of the national budget, evaporated like morning fog over the Atacama. But Chile didn't collapse, and that's the second exhibit. In the 1980s and 90s, Chilean policymakers made a choice most resource-dependent nations don't make. They created something called the Copper Stabilization Fund. The idea was almost boring in its simplicity. When copper prices were high, Chile didn't spend all the windfall, they saved it. When prices fell, they spent the reserves. It sounds like common sense. It's not. Most countries see a commodity boom and spend like it'll never end. Why? Because the political incentive cuts the other direction. A president who spends the windfall gets re-elected. A president who saves gets called a miser. The math is brutal. And yet Chile's leadership chose the harder path, which means someone somewhere was paying them to see that far ahead. That choice became Exhibit 3 when 2020 hit. COVID-19 crushed global demand. Copper prices plummeted again. But this time Chile had a cushion. The Copper Stabilization Fund had accumulated roughly $27 billion. That money kept hospitals open, kept teachers paid, kept the government functioning when tax revenue collapsed. Countries without that buffer, Peru, Zambia, others, spiraled into crisis. Now here's where the story gets interesting for anyone watching global markets. Copper isn't just a Chilean problem, it's a global thermometer. About half the copper mined globally goes into construction and electrical wiring. Another quarter goes into machinery and industrial equipment. The rest, electronics, renewable energy infrastructure, everything else. So when Chilean copper production tightens, whether from drought, political unrest, or just geological depletion, the global supply tightens. When supply tightens, prices rise. When prices rise, construction slows in Shanghai. Renewable energy projects in Germany get delayed. Semiconductor makers in Taiwan face higher input costs. One mine in the Atacama Desert doesn't just affect Chile's budget. It ripples through the entire scaffolding of industrial civilization. Economists call this a bellwether. A bellwether is a leading indicator, something that tells you what's coming before the data confirms it. Copper prices move before recessions hit. They spike before booms materialize. Investors watch Chilean production numbers the way sailors watch clouds. The pattern is old, really old. In the 1970s, Chile's dictator Augusto Pinochet made copper the centerpiece of his economic model. He privatized mines. He deregulated markets. He bet the entire national strategy on copper exports. It worked for a while. GDP grew, but the model had a fatal flaw. It was hostage to a price set by global markets, not by Chilean policy. When copper crashed in the early 80s, Chile's entire economic model broke. Unemployment hit 30%. Banks failed. The dictator's grip loosened not because of ideology, but because copper prices fell. That's the real power of a bellwether commodity. It doesn't just predict economic trends, it shapes politics. Fast forward to 2021. Copper prices hit record highs as the global economy rebounded from COVID. Chile's budget ballooned again, but something else happened: water. The Atacama's aquifers are drying. Mining copper requires enormous quantities of water. As drought intensified, production costs climbed. Some mines became uneconomical. This is the next chapter of the story. Chile faces a paradox. The world needs more copper than ever: electric vehicles, solar panels, grid modernization. But the easiest copper to extract is already extracted. New mines require deeper drilling, more processing, more water, and water in the Atacama is the scarcest resource on Earth. Nobody in this story is stupid. The mining companies know the constraint. The Chilean government knows it. The investors know it. That's why copper prices have stayed elevated even as global growth slowed. The market is pricing in scarcity, not today's scarcity, but tomorrow's. Chile's copper will become more valuable and harder to get, which means the global economy, the construction, the electronics, the energy transition, all of it will become more expensive. Here's where the bellwether metaphor breaks down. A bellwether just predicts. It doesn't change what's coming. But Chilean copper isn't passive, it's active. Its scarcity will force choices: invest in recycling, find substitutes, ration consumption. Each choice ripples outward. And this is where nations that watch Chile's playbook start mattering. Peru produces copper too. So do Indonesia, Zambia, Australia. If those countries follow Chile's model, save during booms, invest wisely, build institutional capacity, they become economic anchors. If they don't, they become cautionary tales. The lesson isn't about copper, it's about how a single commodity can reveal the structure of global power. Chile's copper mines are windows into why some nations build resilience and others build debt, why some leaders choose delayed gratification and others choose re-election, why geography matters but policy matters more. So the next time you hear about copper prices, don't think of it as an obscure commodity metric. Think of it as a signal. Think of it as a story about how nations choose to handle fortune. Think of it as a preview of what comes next, not just for Chile, but for the rest of us. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe to stay ahead of the geoeconomic forces reshaping global markets. There's a new unsolved case in the intersection of power, resources, and policy every week. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.